Hello everyone, back tuning in to the final video of the year. So we're going to have a look at when it's week to 10 days for today's video. Now, we've been talking about this chance of colder weather coming up in early January. Initially it looked like, well, we're going to get the northerly wind coming down tomorrow, New Year's Day. That's going to give us a bit of a northerly shot over New Year's Day and into Bank Holiday Monday. Then the idea was that we'd have high pressure building across the country before another northerly shot comes in at the end of next week. And that was like the trigger northerly. We get that down, and then the idea is that we might get the high pressure building behind it and send it up to Scandinavia, turning the winds from a cold northerly to potentially a very cold, even a severely cold easterly. The severe cold part of all this was very much just a low risk probability. It never looked definite at all. But the northerly, we did have pretty good agreement for that a couple of days ago. It looked like we was going to get quite a northerly shot at the end of the coming week. The idea is being eradicated as I speak by the models, and again, it just goes to prove how difficult it is in our country to get cold weather, to get all the pieces to come together. Now, I'm not going to totally rule out the chance, because I'm going to show you the GFS ensembles in a moment. We won't go through the ensembles, not got time to do that, but I'll show you the GFS ensemble chart. There are many options still to turn it colder, so don't be ruling out the chance that things are going to turn cold at the end of next week. But we are having a very substantial and significant wobble with this at the moment, as we nearly always do actually before a cold spell in this country. As I say, we're balanced between the ocean on the one hand, the warm ocean up to our west and south, and then the cold landmass and Arctic to our north and east. We're always on a knife edge between those two completing and conflicting air masses and drivers of the weather. And that's why it's always very complicated in the UK to get cold conditions. It's very rare that we set up a cold spell and we don't have any problems along the way. And as I always say, it tends to be when we get into the cold spell that things get easier. It's actually getting there, getting the pieces in place, that is when very often it goes wrong. This could be one of those occasions where that's happening. But I don't want to write anything off at this stage. It's too early to be doing that. So I'm going to show you the charts. We're going to have all three GFS runs that we've had so far today. The midday run of the GFS is coming out as I'm speaking. And I'm going to show you the midnight and 6 o'clock run as well. We'll also have a look at the ECMWF. So a lot to cram in for today's video. Before I get on with that, very quick to say about the as links to articles on pages. Have a browse, widgets, click links. If there's any articles that are interesting, help us to pay the website. And thanks very much for doing that. Weekend forecast was released earlier today with very low confidence. If you want to have a look at that, check out the video, which is on the homepage. Just scroll down the page slightly, so leave the link ads. And also there's a written version. You get to that via buttons at the top of the page. It says written centre, and then from there you can go off to our written pages for 5 and 7 day forecast written pages. So let's get on with the last video of the year, and we're going to start off with the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts. We've got the ECMWF here on the top and the GFS on the bottom. We'll have a look at that in a moment. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet is an area in the atmosphere. High pressure, low pressure being moved around by a jet stream running above. Blue extrapolates to high pressure, and red to blue extrapolates to low pressure, red to high pressure. So we've still got this cold trough during the next week to 10 days up over Scandinavia. The difference is that we're and northeastern Europe as well. The difference is that we're extending it down now into eastern and southeastern parts of Europe. And then we've got this ridge in the Atlantic just here, this area of above average heights. Notice things are significantly different compared to yesterday across America. Yesterday had a deep trough covering most of the states. Actually, that is being pulled back over to the Pacific side over here, so very cold for them in the Pacific side of America. Most of America actually not all that cold, with a sort of a westerly flow coming across. So that's a very significant change compared to what we were seeing yesterday. For us, it's very subtle. There's not all that much difference, really. The difference is that the trough is elongating and extending down into eastern and southeastern Europe like that, which leaves us with a very slight difference, but we've got more of an Atlantic influence. Our air is coming down more in that sort of direction. So as I say, there's not much in it, but it is a big difference, and it's an important difference, because it's taking the cold again into East and Southeast Europe. They've had a very cold winter through the Balkans, down into Turkey, down into Greece. Been a really cold winter there. And this next shot of really severe cold air looks like it could be heading their way. The GFS is very similar with this as well. So again, we've got that ridge out of the Atlantic. It's a little bit further north than the ECMWF perhaps on this chart. But the idea is still really to extend that trough more down into southeastern parts of Europe, just there, which doesn't get the cold, or the real cold, out into the west of Europe. So that leaves us close to the ridge, just with very similar conditions than we've had through December so far, really. So these are the GFS ensembles, and you can see what's happened with these. So dealing with the upper air temperatures, the red line is the 30-year temperature average. There's our little cold snap coming up over New Year, so we've got that okay. Now, it's this period just here, which is always going to get a slightly milder few days for the middle part of the week. And it's just this period just here that's going to go cold with the northerly. And the idea was that we'd get this northerly through at the end of the week, and then that would be the trigger, possibly, to turn the winds to the east for the second week of January. You can see what's happening. There are still several cold members of the GFS ensemble. All these members are turning things cold. Some cases even severely cold. But the thrust of the ensemble is actually a little bit on the milder side. Now it's more towards the red line, and it's more towards the 30-year temperature average. Basically, it's instead of being split sort of 60-40 in favour of cold, it's probably now split 60-40 in favour of mild. So there's not a great deal in it. It's just that the trend seems to be moving at the moment away from cold. But whilst we've got all of these cold outlier members, well, not really outliers because there's so many members doing this, you can't really call them outliers. So let's say while we've got all of these cold members, we certainly can't be writing off the prospect that things are going to turn cold at the end of the week and then through into the second week of January. It's just a very, very uncertain situation. So this is the midnight run of the GFS, and we see that on Thursday the idea was to have this area of high pressure through the country. This is our trigger low. This low pressure just here around Iceland was supposed to be coming down like that and turning winds into the north, allowing this area of high pressure to push up there, and then the idea is that we might send that high pressure over to Scandinavia. But that part of it, getting high pressure to Scandinavia and turning winds into the east, was always a long shot. But we did have pretty good agreement for the northerly, so we did have pretty good agreement to get this low pressure from Iceland and send it sort of that way and bring the wind in to the north. Well, let's see what the midnight run of the GFS does with that low pressure. And instead of pushing it down across the country, it moved it into Scandinavia. So it's heading off up towards Norway there on Friday. And it pushes into Scandinavia itself, and it did allow a little bit of a northerly to develop. So, yeah, we've got high pressure going through the Atlantic, and we are turning the flow into the north. The main cold thrust is over to the northeast of Europe through Scandinavia. And then the high pressure collapsing down over the top of the country next weekend. So that's sort of frosty, foggy conditions. Most of the cold air plunging down into the east and southeast of Europe on the eastern side of this ridge of high pressure. So we're not in the cold air there. Although under the high pressure there would be frost and fog, we do get a little bit of a northerly. So yes, there is a bit of frost and fog, but the real cold is in the east and the southeast of Europe. Now eventually the midnight run brought it all back, and it started to push this high pressure back northwards again. A long way out. This is day 10, Tuesday 10th of January. By Wednesday the 11th, it's actually got the high pressure up towards Scandinavia and pulling in this easterly wind. So that looks better to bring in a colder easterly flow. And as I say, once this locks in, then we're off and running. It's just getting to the situation. So by the time you go through to Saturday 14th of January, we're in a real easterly bay. Follow the isobars back. The air's originating from Russia. That will be a very cold easterly, and there's lots of cold upper air temperatures still left. So it did eventually get there. The midnight run did eventually get there. It just delayed the whole thing, but eventually it took that high pressure up to Scandinavia, albeit the northerly didn't really appear. So let's have a look at the 6 o'clock run of the GFS next, and I think that should be that chart. So there we go. And again, for Wednesday, the idea is still lots of high pressure around the country. There's the cold pool that's over Scandinavia waiting to strike. A change with this one at the 6 o'clock run started to take the high pressure up towards Scandinavia as early as Thursday. So that looks like it could be setting up an easterly, but actually no, it doesn't. And the low pressure that was going to be the trigger low, that's even further north now, heading up towards Svalbard. And all that does is push the high pressure down over the country, and it stops us getting that northerly wind through. So instead of getting a northerly wind next weekend, actually we're pulling up quite a mild southerly to southwesterly there on the 6 o'clock run of the GFS. Totally different pattern really compared to the midnight run of the GFS. And then we continue on into next weekend, and it all looks very mild really, and that takes us through into day 10, where there's nothing really doing in terms of cold weather at all. We're in an Atlantic flow. The cold air, again, it's up to the northeast here and plunging down into eastern parts of Europe as well. So that's a very different run, the 6 o'clock run, and it shows the model turmoil that's going on. This is the ECMWF midnight run. That will be updating this evening. The midday run will be updating this evening. So this is how the ECMWF was seeing things on Wednesday, pulling down this northerly with high pressure out to the west of the country. Then it has the high pressure on Thursday over the country. Again, lots of cold air. It's up over northern Europe waiting to strike. Friday, it looks like we're starting to turn winds into the north from Friday into Saturday. So a little bit of a northerly still there on the ECMWF. And that's about what it's been doing, actually. It never went over the top with this northerly at the end of the week. And that's roughly where it's been all the way along. So it's not changing all that much. Very cold air is in over Scandinavia with this trough just here. And the ridge, of course, that's out to the west, and it's up there as well. The winds are in from the north. So on the ECMWF, we do get that northerly at the end of the week and into next weekend. Doesn't turn into an easterly, though. That high pressure sits out to west of us generally up to day 10, which is Tuesday, 10th of January. Still a very extensive cold pool there up to the east and the north of the country. Where that will go after that, I'm not sure. We do, as I say, we do still get that northerly over the weekend that the GFS is sort of in the process of eradicating at the moment. So that is a bit better from a colder perspective. We don't get the easterly, but we do get a northerly coming through for a time. And just to bring you up to date with the midday run of the GFS, so I won't be able to go all the way through the run with this yet because it's still updating. But this is how it's looking on Wednesday. The high pressure is still there through the country. There's the cold air over Scandinavia and much of northern Europe. It's very similar to the 6 o'clock run. The high pressure is trying to get up to Scandinavia on Thursday. Again, that was our trigger low. That was going to bring us the northerly. And then we go through to Friday, when again you see what's happening. That low pressure is pushing into Scandinavia, which just leaves us sat under this ridge, and actually for the north pulling up a relatively mild southwesterly wind for England and Wales. We've got the cooler air under the ridge, but nothing particularly cold. The proper cold air is going down into eastern parts of Europe. I can show you where the cold air is. And so the cold air with that is going down into Eastern Europe. So it's through Russia, it's into the east of Europe, and it's going down into the Balkans and into the southeast of Europe. Greece, Turkey, getting the cold and the snow again, as are the Balkans. You see, but we're on the mild side of that ridge. Very, very substantial and significant changes on what the GFS was showing, even as far back as the midnight run. So we go up to a week away. This is Friday the 6th of January, and if I just refresh that, you'll be able to see Saturday 7th of January, should say you'll be able to see that up to day 8. It all looks rather bleak if you want cold weather. Really, you've got high pressure down to the south. We've got this deep trough in over Scandinavia with another push of cold air. That was the cold air that was supposed to be coming down over us at the point of next weekend. That instead is coming down over Scandinavia with that area of low pressure, and I'll see if I can go any further on. So this takes us up to Sunday the 8th of January, where it looks like we're trying to build a little bit of a ridge up over Scandinavia, but we're still under that mild area, well, that area of high pressure is bringing in relatively mild air from the Atlantic. Again, if I show you what's happening with the upper air temperatures, you see that the cold air is still there over Scandinavia and into eastern parts of Europe. We remain with the mild air from off the Atlantic. I doubt I'll be able to go any further than that. Okay, we can get through to Monday the 9th of January, and still nothing really happening in terms of cold weather, so it's delaying things. Looks like the polar vortex is beginning to re-strengthen a little bit around there as well, so that's trying probably to get us back into westerly flow. You wouldn't totally rule out the chance of cold weather even from that chart, because there's still lots of it left in the east and the northeast of Europe, but definitely the GFS having a very, very big wobble today on this, and I will see how things progress with the rest of the models overnight into tomorrow. Finally, just having a look at the CFS V2 for the next month. So these 500 millibar heights, 30th, 1st of September, 6th of January, places ridge out to the west, flows coming down rather like that. We go through to week 2, that has the ridge out to the west of us, and it's extending up towards northern blocking as well. Over top of the pole, that looks really good for cold weather, and that's bringing down a very cold northerly northeasterly wind. That's from the 7th through to 13th of January. Week 3, 14th to 20th of January, that looks really good as well. Look at all that blocking. It's up to the north. Classic charts, these for cold weather. And again, the flow's coming in from the east. And we go through to week 4, and it still looks very, very good. This would be a classically cold January, I think, if it came off. Loads of blocking around Greenland and Iceland, low pressure underneath it. The flow is coming in from the northeast. So the CFS V2 is suggesting that even if this little attempt to get some colder weather at the end of the coming week and into the second week of January doesn't quite make it, we've got more opportunities through the month, and it really is going to town today, CFS, with the idea that we might get some very significantly cold weather. I'll just see whether the GFS midday run has updated to day 10. Don't think it will be. No, it hasn't updated to day 10 yet. So that's how it's looking. It's a very confused picture. The northerly that was going to come down at the end of the week looks like it's in a bit of trouble. The ECMWF is still going for some sort of northerly. GFS has totally eradicated it within around 2 runs. But the GFS ensembles are suggesting that there is still a very realistic prospect of turning things significantly colder. So if you want cold weather, bit of a downbeat way to be ending the year. Sorry about that. But that's just what the models do to us when we are model watching through the winter. They chop and change. As I say, it's very, very difficult to get cold weather in the UK because of our place in the world. It's always complicated and hard to do it. So let's just wait and see. It could well be that over the next couple of days they will bring this back and bring the cold back to us. We're going to have to wait and see how it pans out. If they don't, the CFS is suggesting there will be more opportunities through January to get a significant spell of cold weather at some point. Right, well, that's it for 2016. Thanks to everybody for watching the videos through the year for a sporting website. Of course, we did the fundraiser back in the summer for the Warwickshire and Northamptonshire Air Ambulance. So I want to thank everybody again who donated to that. We raised a huge amount of money, over £1,000. Really, really impressed with the amount of money that we managed to raise for Warwickshire and Northamptonshire Air Ambulance. So a big thank you to all of you who did that. And just generally, thanks for the support that you've given to Gareth Weathers and myself over the course of the year. Hasn't been the easiest of years for myself or my family, but you've always helped and supported us as we've gone through the year. So a big thank to everybody for doing that. I just say have a great new year. If you're off out tonight, enjoy it, and well, see you next year. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.